In today's video, we're going to take a look at Starfield CPU performance across multiple CPUs, both Intel's and AMD's flagship processors, and explore how far we can push them to overcome Starfield's system resource hungry requirements. As you know, Starfield is a AMD sponsored title, and such we expected that the AMD CPUs, especially the ones with 3D cache, were going to outperform Intel CPUs. However, as we have seen in early CPU reviews, that's not the case and Intel is taking the lead. So let's dig deeper into that. To kick things off, we'll be using Pcgameshardware.de's benchmark results and data that he provided in his latest article of Starfield CPU performance. This is the most complete set of CPUs that anybody has compared for Starfield. They have also completely open sourced the benchmarking methodology. This is the most open way of doing benchmarks. It allows anybody to peer review their results and build data on top of it. This allows anybody to contribute but also challenge the results if they don't think it's correct, to build a complete source of truth of how Starfield performs. Oh, how I just love the Germans when they do this. So I would love to see your results in the comments below. To show my gratitude and make it more open source, I've created a shared Excel sheet, all the PC Gamers hardware data and mine in the description below, so anybody can build on top of it with their own results. So let's jump into it. To copy the benchmark run, just download the saved file that is available in the article. Once downloaded, there's a very nice readme file where you can see exactly where to move the saved file into Starfield saved folders. Once you have moved it into the right folder, you'll be able to launch directly the saved file from the game. And as you can see here, the benchmarking run is very straightforward. It takes roughly 20 seconds to complete. It goes through one of the most CPU demanding areas in Starfield called Aquila. In my testing and results, I took the average of 5 runs. The reason why I did 5 runs is because Starfield can spawn a random number of NPCs at any given time, so there's a small variable depending on each run you're taking. So taking into that variable account, I'm doing 5 runs and doing the average of that. Similar to what I do with Star Citizen benchmark results. To maximize the chances of being CPU bottlenecked, PC Gamers Hardware recommended of running the game in 720p with all the settings maxed out. Settings are right here and also in the description below. Taking a look at PC Gamers Hardware results, we can see that the CPU's memory performance is just based on what we call plug-and-play settings. Basically the default settings, the BIOS will set the memory speed clocks at if you don't enable XMP. To validate and peer review PC Gamers Hardware data, you can see my plug-and-play results right now. I have the 3900K, the 7800 X3D and the 5800 X3D, and as you can see, my results came lower than PC Gaming Hardware's results. The main reason why this is because he's running Windows 11, which has a better thread scheduler than Windows 10. This can explain the deviation, as he has roughly 3 to 4% higher performance on average with his plug-and-play settings. Now, before any Windows 11 fanboy writes, "Hey Game Day, why don't you use Windows 11?" Well, the reality is over 50% of all PC gamers use Windows 10. It's actually way more optimized for the main game I'm running, Star Citizen. But this has me very intrigued and I will definitely revisit a Windows 11 versus Windows 10 benchmark for Starfield and Star Citizen in the future. With that out of the way, let's see how we can improve the performance of the 5800 X2D, the 7800 X2D, and the 3900K. Taking a look at my fully tuned 5800 X2D, we can see that we're looking at roughly 7 to 11% better performance. The reason why we're not seeing a massive performance benefits as we've seen in Star Citizen with RAM tuning and optimization is probably because this game is more tied to the memory bandwidth than the latency, and as such the 5800 X2D is very much tied to the limitation of its Infinity Fabric, but with these tuned results it puts it in between the 12700K and the 7600. Taking a look at the 7800 XD fully tuned, we can see it got a very nice boost on the average and 1% lows. Here we're seeing 10% improvements on the average, but look at the 1% lows. It's receiving a 21% performance boost, and we'll talk more about how RAM speed affects performance in the next section. Taking a look at 3900K fully tuned with 8200 MHz, we are seeing a 16% better performance on the average, but a 20% better performance on the 1% low. Now, I'm going to leave this as a caveat, as this 3900K is not stock settings. It's fully tuned, and I'll show you how I was able to achieve this performance boost in the RAM section. Taking a look at how the 7800 X3 scales with memory, we are testing 4 different memory profiles. The first one is the standard standard settings you will receive when you do not change anything in the BIOS. The second one is a very common XMP profile of 6000 MHz. And the fourth one is the tuned results of clocking the memory to 6400 MHz with 1:1 ratio with the Infinity Fabric, memory controller, and UCLK. And finally, thanks to the latest BIOS update, we're also testing 8000 MHz with the memory controllers out of sync, but with lower latencies. The first thing that's interesting is that 6000 and 5200 MHz, there isn't really much of a performance benefit. But once we go into 6400 and 8000 MHz, we're seeing a massive 10% performance boost in the average, but also a nice bump in the 1% lows. Alright, so let's jump straight into it on 3900K. Running 3900K at 8200 tuned, we are seeing quite interesting results. This is not the same results as my fully tuned system that I showed you in the benchmark. I'm seeing no performance benefits in the 1% low, but I'm seeing roughly 15% performance benefits on the average. So I had to dig a little bit deeper. Has this something to do with the Windows 10's poor scheduling? Am I not seeing the right performance because of that? So what I did was I disabled eCores, because it's very common for Windows 10 to not be able to handle those eCores properly. So there we go. Now we're getting a better 1% lows. However, the average is actually lower. So I wasn't really satisfied with these results. I had to check different configurations. And the second configuration I tried was disabling hyperthreading with 8 eCores. Voila, we got 123 FPS again, but also the 1% low is now massively higher, 96. So I asked myself, well, what if we do 16 eCores? Well, there you go. This is where I got the best results. So what I'm predicting here, or what I'm expecting, or what I'm thinking is happening is that Windows 10 is just not able to use the 3900K effectively and able to schedule what workload each thread will be doing. So now that we know the optimum setting for the 3900K and Windows 10, let's run 7200 XMP. And as you can see, we are seeing a small delta between 7200 XMP and the tuned memory. But that's not all, folks. As you know, you can also pair the 3900K with DDR4. So let's take a look at how the DDR4 compares with DDR5. Alright, DDR4 completely butchered the 3900K, especially when you're running it on plug-and-play settings. Now, similar here, we are testing different setups to see how 3900K performs with the different core, hyperthreading, and E-cores. Now, all of a sudden, when we have DDR4, the profile of the performance behavior is completely different. Instead of 16 E-cores being the most high performant, as I was expecting, with DDR4, it just seems to like the performance cores with hyperthreading enabled. This is where we saw the highest results. 108 FPS on the average and 81 on the 1% low. This is equivalent to the 3900K with DDR5 at 5600 with no core optimization. Now comparing the best DDR4 results with the standard and the best DDR5 results, we can see that DDR5 in any configuration is just better. And like Jensen says,
it is safe to upgrade now.
Now, let's dig a little bit deeper into how DDR4 scales with different frequencies. And look how DDR4 scales from 3200, 3600, and finally the tune settings. RAM here scales very, very well. So if you're running the 3900K, or actually any 13th or 12th generation with DDR4, you should be looking into how you can improve your performance by overclocking memory. If you don't, then don't complain on Reddit how Starfield is unoptimized when it's your PC. Let's conclude the RAM section by looking at the i.64 results for each configuration. What we're seeing here is a possible correlation between the memory bandwidth of the read, write, and copy directly correlating with the average FPS increasing in performance. This is further highlighted with the 3900K at 4100 MHz with super low latency, almost matching the 3900K with DDR5 5600 MHz. The bandwidth in DDR5 simply outperforms its latency penalty it has against DDR4. We're looking at roughly 10 gigabytes more on average. This will also explain why the 7800 X2D is not winning over the Intel system. The read and copy bandwidth is very similar to the 3900K with 3600 DDR4 speeds. As you can see, the FPS is similar. This could be a coincidence, but it would definitely explain the performance differences up to a certain point where we become clock bound. Looking at the CPU frequency scaling results of the 3900K, we can see that the performance scales linearly, right, going from 5 5.8 to 5 GHz, we're seeing a massive drop on the 1% low. Meanwhile, it actually is keeping the average pretty steady. This is probably due to a few factors that the game is very well multi-threaded, because as we are dropping all the way down to 4 GHz and 3.5 GHz on the E-cores, we're seeing still that this is outperforming the 7800X 3D. And for those who are saying, hey game day, nobody is running a 4090 at 720p, these results don't matter. Well, for you guys, this next section is for you. We'll be taking a look at what point can a CPU support a 4090 where there's no difference in the higher resolutions. Alright, now let's take our core optimized results and the best results throughout the benchmark and set them up against each other at different resolutions. Looking at 1080p, we can see that the 1300K is actually losing performance against 720p. And the reason why is that at 1080p, the 4090 is GPU bound at 1080p in 1080p thanks for this CPU. Moving to 7800X3D, we're not GPU bound anymore, we're actually CPU bound. And the 5800X3D, well, we were already bound at 720p, nothing changes here. Further, moving to 1440p, we're seeing that once again we are GPU bound on 1300K, but looking at the 7800X3D, we're actually losing a little bit of performance at the higher resolutions. Looking at 4K, both the top tier AMD and Intel systems are tied. This means 71 FPS and 58 seems to be the limit of this overclocked 4090 in 4K. And if you pair that up against the database of PC gaming hardware, we can expect that any CPU that's unable to achieve 71 FPS on the average will not be well paired with the 4090 in 4K. That is anything below the 13400F untuned. So in conclusion, Starfield is optimized in a way that will take all the resources you give to it at any given time. Whether you have multiple threads, a lot of bandwidth, or high frequencies. It will take all those resources, and as such, if you're writing articles on Reddit that the game is unoptimized, the reality is the only thing unoptimized is your PC.
Why did you not optimize this game for PC?
We did.